The vast ship hung in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. Admiral Click stood tall on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his forearms crossed behind his back as he looked at the blue planet on the main screen. Earth, the humans called it, a water world full of resources and a species that had barely reached their own moon, perfect for adding to the Voidarian Empire. Status report, Admiral Clix demanded, his voice deep and rumbling. All ships are in position, Admiral, said Commander Vex. The Armada is ready for your command. Our scans show primitive defense, systems, mostly missiles and fighter aircraft. Nothing that can harm our vessels. Admiral Clix nodded, pleased. This conquest would be quick and simple. Emperor Zorn would be happy with another world added to their empire. 3,000 worlds served the empire already. Soon it would be 3,001. Prepare the first wave, ordered Admiral Clix. Target their military bases but avoid too much damage to infrastructure. We need their resources intact. As the Voidarian fleet prepared for attack, life on Earth continued as normal. In the small lunar observatory on the far side of the moon, Lieutenant Susan Miller sat at her monitoring station. The night shift was usually quiet. She sipped her coffee and watched the screens showing different parts of space. Then something changed. A red light began to flash on her console. Susan sat up straight and put down her coffee. That's strange, she said to herself. She tapped at her keyboard, bringing up more detailed scans. What she saw made her breath catch. Hundreds of objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were moving toward Earth in perfect formation. Susan quickly pressed the emergency button on her console. Commander Foster, you need to see this right away. Commander Richard Foster rushed into the monitoring room minutes later, his face serious. What have you got, Miller? Unidentified objects, sir. Hundreds of them. They appeared suddenly at the edge of our system and they're moving in formation toward Earth. They're not natural objects. They're ships. Commander Foster looked at the screen, his face showing no fear, only calm determination. Call Global Defense Command, tell them we have a code Olympian, I'll alert the world leaders. Within 2 hours, representatives from every nation sat around a large circular table deep beneath the Swiss Alps. The room was silent as General Alan Garcia stood at the head of the table. On the wall behind him, a large screen showed the approaching fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, General Garcia said, his voice steady. The day we prepared for has arrived. Alien contact is no longer theoretical. A large fleet is approaching Earth with what appears to be military formation. The room remained calm. There were no gasps, no shouts of fear, just serious faces and quick nods. Is Protocol Olympian Shield ready? Asked President Olivia Johnson. Yes, Madam President, replied General Garcia. The shield has been ready for 15 years. The orbital platforms are in position. Ground-based systems are online. The underwater arrays are powered up. And the public remains unaware? Asked the Chinese representative. Yes. As agreed in the Shanghai Accord of 2010, all defense preparations have remained secret. The public believes our space programs are limited to the International Space Station and basic satellite technology. President Johnson nodded. Very good. And what about our visitors? What do we know about them? A woman with short gray hair stood up. This was Dr. Linda Hayes, head of Xenotechnology Research. We've been analyzing their ships since they were detected. Their technology is advanced, but not unknown to us. They use conventional fusion drives for propulsion. Their weapons appear to be plasma-based, nothing our systems can't handle. Do we know their intentions? Asked the Russian president. Their formation is clearly military, said General Garcia. They've made no attempt to communicate. We must assume their intentions are hostile. Then we proceed as planned, said President Johnson. Activate the global sensor grid. Track every ship, but no offensive measures until they make the first move. We are not aggressors. Dr. Hayes walked to a computer terminal and typed in a series of commands. Across the Earth and in secret bases on the Moon, advanced sensors activated. These were not the primitive radio telescopes the public knew about. These were quantum-entangled sensors capable of mapping every molecule of the approaching fleet. Sensor grid active, reported Dr. Hayes. We now have full tracking on all vessels. On her screen, hundreds of red dots appeared, each representing an alien ship. At the center was a larger dot, the flagship. Should we hail them? Asked the British Prime Minister. Not yet, said President Johnson. Let them make the first move. We need to understand their intentions clearly before we respond. In the orbital platforms disguised as weather satellites, defensive systems quietly powered up. On the ocean floor, massive energy collectors began drawing power from Earth's core. In the mountain ranges and deep deserts, hidden silos opened, revealing not missiles but advanced energy weapons developed through decades of reverse engineering alien technology that had crashed on Earth since the 1940s. All of this happened in complete silence. To the regular citizens of Earth, it was just another day. They went to work, took their children to school, watched television, and scrolled through their phones. None of them knew that high above, an alien armada was approaching with conquest in mind. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Click smiled as Earth grew larger on his view screen. Send the message, he ordered. Let the humans know their new masters have arrived. Commander Vex nodded and transmitted the Empire's standard ultimatum to the planet below. The message was simple: surrender or be destroyed. How long should we give them to respond? Asked Commander Vex. 1 rotation of their planet, said Admiral Clicks, though I doubt they'll need it. Most species surrender immediately when they see our fleet. Little did he know that in the command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Earth's leaders were watching his message with calm eyes. They had been preparing for this day for generations. The humans were ready. The sun rose over Earth as it always did. People woke up, made breakfast, and got ready for their day. News channels reported on politics, weather, and sports. No one mentioned the alien fleet now in orbit around their planet. But in the hidden command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Earth's leaders watched as the Voidarian ships positioned themselves over major cities. The massive vessels cast shadows that would have been visible to anyone who looked up, but a complex atmospheric distortion field kept them hidden from public view. They've moved into attack position, said General Garcia, pointing to the main screen. Classic encirclement pattern. President Johnson nodded. Are all defense systems ready? Yes, Madam President. Shield generators are at full power. Countermeasures are standing by. On the main screen, a new message appeared. Admiral Clicks looked directly at them, his purple skin gleaming under the lights of his bridge. People of Earth, the alien commander said, his voice translated by Earth's advanced systems. You have received our terms. Your planet is now part of the Voidarian Empire. 3,000 worlds serve Emperor Zorn. You will be the 3,001st. Surrender your resources and swear loyalty to the Emperor, or face destruction. You have 12 hours remaining to comply. The screen went dark. President Johnson looked around the table at the other world leaders. Opinions? We should respond, said the German Chancellor. Let them know we received their message. President Johnson nodded and turned to Communications Director Frank Murphy. Send our reply, Frank. Keep it simple. Murphy typed a brief message into his console. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Clicks received the human response. It was only 7 words. This is Earth. We decline your offer. Admiral Clicks laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Such pride from primitives, they have no idea what they face. He turned to Commander Vex. Prepare a demonstration of our power. Target their moon base, no survivors. Commander Vex smiled. Yes, Admiral. The moon base will be destroyed in minutes. On the lunar surface, Lieutenant Susan Miller and Commander Foster watched the Voidarian warship approach their position. The ship was massive, casting a long shadow across the lunar dust. They're charging weapons, said Susan, looking at her console. Energy readings are spiking. Commander Foster nodded calmly. Right on schedule. Activate Defense Protocol Alpha. Susan pressed a series of buttons on her console. Outside, buried beneath the lunar surface, advanced technology hummed to life. The Voidarian ship fired. A bright beam of energy shot toward the lunar base. Just before impact, a shimmering field appeared, absorbing the blast completely. On the Eternal Dominion, Commander Vex stared at his screen in shock. Admiral, the lunar base remains intact. Our weapons had no effect. Admiral Klix slammed his fist on his chair. Impossible. Scan that base again. New data appeared on the Voidarian screens. What had seemed like a simple research station now showed complex energy readings and advanced materials. These readings can't be right, said Commander Vex. This technology is beyond their capabilities. Before Admiral Klix could respond, every console on the bridge lit up with warnings. Across his entire fleet, weapon systems were failing. Engines were shutting down. The mighty Armada was becoming powerless. What is happening? Roared Admiral Klix. Find the source of this interference. In the control room beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Linda Hayes monitored the effectiveness of Earth's defensive systems. Quantum disruption field is working perfectly, she reported. Their ships are being disabled one by one. General Garcia nodded, satisfied. Any casualties? None, sir. All their crew members are unharmed. We're simply neutralizing their offensive capabilities. President Johnson stood beside a large tactical display. Prepare the next phase. I want visual contact with their admiral. On the Eternal Dominion, a new message appeared on the main screen. It showed a simple room with a table. Seated at the table were General Garcia, Dr. Hayes, and President Johnson. Admiral Klix, said President Johnson, her voice calm and firm. This is Earth speaking. Your weapons have been neutralized. Your engines have been disabled. You are no longer a threat to our planet. Admiral Klix snarled, showing his teeth. What trickery is this? Your species is primitive. You barely have space travel. Dr. Hayes smiled gently. I'm afraid you've been misinformed, Admiral. Earth reached your level of technology over a century ago. What you see of our civilization is merely what we allow the public to see. General, Garcia leaned forward. We detected your fleet the moment it entered our solar system. We've been monitoring your communications, scanning your weapon systems, and preparing our response. Impossible, shouted Admiral Klix. Our intelligence reports were based on what we wanted you to see, finished President Johnson. Earth has been aware of the wider galactic community for generations. We choose isolation not out of weakness, but out of caution. Admiral Klix stared at the humans in disbelief. His mighty armada, the pride of the Voidarian Empire, hung powerless in Earth's orbit. 300 ships, 30,000 soldiers, the most advanced weapons in the Empire, all defeated without a single shot fired in return. What happens now? He asked, his voice quieter. Now we talk, said President Johnson. Like civilized beings. Your crew will remain unharmed. Your ships will be returned to you once we've reached an understanding. And if I refuse to talk? Asked Admiral Klix. General Garcia pressed a button on the table. On his view screen, Admiral Klix watched as one of his smaller ships was surrounded by a blue light. The ship vanished, then reappeared a moment later, near one of Saturn's moons thousands of kilometers away. That was just a demonstration, said General Garcia. We can send your entire fleet back to your homeworld in seconds if needed, but we prefer diplomacy to displays of power. Admiral Klix sat heavily in his command chair. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. The humans should have been terrified, begging for mercy. Instead, they had disabled his fleet with technology he couldn't even understand. I will speak with you, he said finally. But know this. The Empire will not take this humiliation lightly. President Johnson nodded. We look forward to meeting the representatives of your empire. Perhaps together we can find a peaceful path forward. We'll transport you to our facility in 1 hour. Please come unarmed. As the communication ended, Admiral Klix looked out at Earth, the beautiful blue planet that had just brought the mighty Voidarian Empire to its knees. For the first time in his military career, he felt something new. Fear. Admiral Klix stepped through the shimmering transport field. One moment he stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, and the next he was in a large circular room deep beneath the Swiss mountains. 5 human guards stood nearby, their weapons not drawn but clearly visible. Welcome to Earth, Admiral, said President Johnson, standing to greet him. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Admiral Klix looked around the room. It was simple but elegant, with a round table and comfortable chairs. Through large windows, he could see a massive underground facility stretching for miles. Scientists and soldiers moved about with purpose. Advanced technology hummed and glowed. "I did not have much choice," said Admiral Klix bitterly. "Your weapons have disabled my fleet." "Not weapons," corrected Dr. Hayes, who sat at the table beside General Garcia. "Defense systems. We have not fired a single shot at your ships." Admiral Klix took the seat offered to him. "How is this possible? Our intelligence said your world was primitive. You've barely reached your own moon with your public space program." "Key phrase, public space program," said General Garcia. "What the world sees is very different from what exists." Dr. Hayes tapped on a small device and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed Earth, then zoomed out to reveal a network of satellites, stations, and defense platforms. "Humanity, united in secret decades ago," explained President Johnson. "While nations still appear divided on the surface, we've been working together to advance our technology and protect our planet." "But why hide your capabilities?" asked Admiral Klix. "For the same reason you don't give advanced weapons to children," said General Garcia. "Our public isn't ready to know what we've discovered and developed. It would cause panic, religious crises, economic collapse. And," added Dr. Hayes, "it keeps us safe from empires like yours. Your intelligence thought we were easy prey because that's what we wanted you to think." Admiral Klix felt anger rising in his chest. "So you tricked us." "We protected ourselves," corrected President Johnson calmly. "Just as you would do." Admiral Klix couldn't argue with that. He would have done the same. "Show me," he said finally. "Show me how advanced you really are." Dr. Hayes smiled and pressed another button on her device. The room darkened, and new holograms appeared. They showed technology beyond even what the Voidarian Empire possessed. Energy sources that drew power from the fabric of space itself. Propulsion systems that bent reality. Defensive shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Klix. "Some of this technology would require thousands of years to develop." "Or help," said General Garcia meaningfully. Admiral Klix looked up sharply. "Help? From whom?" "We are not the first visitors to Earth, Admiral," said President Johnson. "For centuries, various species have come to our world. Some crashed. Some visited peacefully. From each encounter we learned. We adapted. We grew." Admiral Klix leaned back in his chair, trying to process this information. The mighty Voidarian Empire, with its 3,000 worlds, had just attempted to invade perhaps the most advanced planet in the galaxy. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you," said President Johnson. "We have no interest in war. We've avoided the galactic community not out of fear but because we prefer peace." "We could destroy your empire," said General Garcia bluntly. "But that's not our way." "Instead," continued Dr. Hayes, "we offer knowledge, trade, cultural exchange. We can help the Voidarian Empire advance beyond conquest." Admiral Klix laughed bitterly. "Emperor Zorn will never agree to that. He lives for conquest." "Then perhaps the Voidarian people need a new emperor," suggested President Johnson quietly. The implication hung in the air. Admiral Klix stared at the human leader, understanding perfectly what she was suggesting. Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, the crews of the Voidarian ships watched in amazement as small human vessels approached them. These were not warships but repair craft. Friendly voices came over their communication systems. "Greetings from Earth. We're here to help restore your systems. Please remain calm." On the ship Void Hunter, Engineer Lox watched suspiciously as humans in spacesuits entered his engine room. They carried strange tools and spoke to each other in their own language. "What are they doing?" asked Lox's assistant. "I think they're fixing our engines," said Lox in disbelief. Within hours, the disabled Voidarian ships had their basic systems restored. Not weapons, those remained offline, but life support, gravity control, and communication all worked perfectly again. The humans even improved some systems, making them more efficient. Back in the meeting room, Admiral Klix received reports of these repairs. He looked at President Johnson with confusion. You disable our ships, then repair them? I don't understand your strategy. It's not a strategy, Admiral. It's who we are, replied President Johnson. We don't seek to destroy or humiliate. We seek understanding. Admiral Klix had never encountered a species like humans before. In the Empire, weakness was despised. Enemies were crushed, not helped. Yet these humans had defeated his armada without firing a shot, then helped his stranded crews. I want to see more, he said finally. Show me this world of yours. Dr. Hayes nodded and pressed another control on her device. A door opened in the wall of the meeting room. We've prepared a tour, she said. There's someone who wants to meet you. Admiral Klix followed the humans through the door and into a large laboratory. Inside, scientists worked on technology that made the Admiral's head spin. And in the center of the room stood a being that made Klix freeze in shock. It wasn't human. It had gray skin, large black eyes, and a small mouth. It was an Arcturian, a species that had vanished from the galaxy 5,000 years ago, long before the Voidarian Empire began. Greetings, Admiral, said the Arcturian. I am Ambassador Zell. I represent the Galactic Concord. The Galactic Concord? Repeated Admiral Klix, stunned. That's just a myth. The Arcturian smiled. Many things you think are myths are simply truths you are not ready to understand. Earth is a special world, Admiral. It is a nexus point, a place where species meet and learn from each other. Admiral Klix looked at the humans, then back at the Arcturian. His world was turning upside down. Everything he thought he knew about. The galaxy was wrong. Emperor Zorn must be told, he said finally. Yes, agreed President Johnson. But what exactly will you tell him, Admiral? That is the question we must now discuss. Admiral Klix sat in the observation room of Earth's orbital station. Through the large window he could see his fleet floating helplessly in space. Earth spun below, blue and green and beautiful. He had come here to conquer this world. Now he was a guest, learning things that shook his understanding of the universe. Beautiful, isn't it? Asked Dr. Hayes, entering the room with a tablet in her hand. Yes, admitted Admiral Klix. In the Empire, we value worlds for their resources, rarely for their beauty. That's the difference between conquest and exploration, said Dr. Hayes, sitting beside him. We learned long ago that the galaxy offers more than just materials to mine and land to claim. Admiral Klix turned to face her. Tell me about this Galactic Concord. Our histories say it was a myth, a story of a peaceful alliance that existed before the Great Wars. It was real, said Dr. Hayes. And still is. Earth has been part of it for over 300 years, though few humans know this. But the Arcturians vanished thousands of years ago. Dr. Hayes smiled. They didn't vanish. They evolved. They learned that true power isn't about conquering worlds, but understanding them. The door opened again, and Ambassador Zell entered. The Arcturian moved with grace that seemed impossible for his thin body. Admiral Klix, said Zell, I hope you are comfortable. As comfortable as one can be when their entire worldview has been destroyed, replied Klix bitterly. Zell made a sound that might have been laughter. Not destroyed, Admiral. Expanded. You now see more of the truth than you did before. That is growth, not destruction. The Emperor will not see it that way. He will view this as failure. The fleet's return without conquest will be seen as weakness. Unless you return with something more valuable than conquest, suggested Zell. Admiral Klix looked confused. What could be more valuable than new worlds to the Empire? Knowledge, said Dr. Hayes. Technology, a place in the Galactic Concord, Zell nodded. The Voidarian Empire stands at a crossroads, Admiral. For centuries you have expanded through conquest, but that path leads to eventual collapse. All empires built on fear and force eventually fail. And what is the alternative? Asked Klix. Partnership, said Dr. Hayes. Earth is willing to share some of our technology with your people. Clean energy, medical advances, faster communication systems. In exchange for what? Asked Klix suspiciously. Peace, said Zell simply. A pledge to end conquest and join the Concord as partners, not predators. Admiral Click stood and paced the room. Such ideas went against everything he had been taught. Since birth, the Empire expanded. That was its purpose, its strength, its glory. Emperor Zorn will never agree to this, he said finally. Then perhaps, said Zell carefully. The time has come for the Voidarian people to consider new leadership. The implication was clear. Admiral Clix stared at the Arcturian, then at Dr. Hayes. They were suggesting treason. Yet their words echoed thoughts he had carried secretly for years. Emperor Zorn's endless wars had cost millions of Voidarian lives, whole generations raised for battle, not creation or discovery. You want me to overthrow the Emperor, he said flatly. We want you to give your people a choice, corrected Dr. Hayes. Show them another path. How can I do that when Earth has humiliated our fleet? My words would be seen as the excuses of a failed commander. Xel smiled. What if you returned not in shame but in glory? Not with a conquered planet, but with technology beyond anything the Empire possesses? On the main deck of the Eternal Dominion, Commander Vex watched in amazement as human engineers installed new systems. The ship's power core, once requiring 6 technicians to maintain, now ran at twice the efficiency with half the energy input. Communication systems now reached across the galaxy in seconds, not days. Navigation computers plotted courses through space that would have been impossible before. This is incredible, he told the human engineer beside him. Why would you give us this technology? We came to conquer your world. The engineer, a man named Bob Wilson, shrugged. Because that's what friends do. They help each other. Friends? Repeated Vex in confusion. We are not friends, we are enemies. Today maybe, said Bob. But tomorrow? That's up to you folks. Similar scenes played out across the Voidarian fleet. Human engineers helped repair and improve their ships. Medical teams treated injured crew members with technology that healed wounds in minutes. Food replicators provided meals that tasted like home. In the orbital station, Admiral Clix watched recordings of these improvements. His crew looked happy, healthy, stronger than before they arrived at Earth. Your people are helping my fleet, he said, confused. After we tried to conquer you? Yes, said President Johnson, who had joined them in the observation room. That's the way of the conquered. We believe that helping others helps us all. But what if we take this technology and use it against you? Asked Clix. President Johnson smiled. The improvements we've given you are impressive, but they're just the beginning of what we have. And more importantly, they're designed to help your people, not to wage war. Besides, added General Garcia, entering the room, we've added certain safeguards. If your ships enter Earth space with hostile intent again, they'll simply shut down. Think of it as a friendly reminder to play nice. Admiral Clix laughed despite himself. These humans were clever. They appeared generous while ensuring their own protection. So what happens now, he asked. Now, said President Johnson, you return to your Emperor. You tell him what you've learned, and you make a choice. What choice? Whether the Voidarian Empire will continue on its path of conquest until it eventually falls, as all such empires do, said Zell, or whether it will join the Galactic Concord and enter a new age of discovery and growth. Admiral Clix looked out at Earth one more time, then at his improved fleet. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Hope. The Imperial Palace on Voidar Prime glowed with purple light. Its tall spires reached toward the 3 moons that hung in the night sky. Inside the great throne room, Emperor Zorn sat impatiently, his forearms drumming on the armrests of his throne. Where is the report from Earth? He demanded. Admiral Clix should have conquered that primitive planet days ago. The court officials looked nervously at each other. None wanted to be the bearer of strange news. Finally, the communication officer stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have received word. The fleet is returning. Excellent, boomed Emperor Zorn. Prepare the celebration. Earth is now part of our glorious empire. Your Majesty, said the officer carefully. Admiral Clix reports that Earth was not conquered. He requests an immediate audience upon his return. The throne room fell silent. Emperor Zorn's face darkened with rage. Not conquered? Impossible. My fleet has never failed. Admiral Klix will pay for this failure with his life. 3 days later, the Voidarian fleet returned to orbit around their home world. But something was different. The ships looked cleaner, smoother, more advanced. They moved with greater speed and precision, and most strangely, they were escorted by 2 small Earth vessels. Emperor Zorn waited in the throne room, surrounded by his elite guards. The massive doors swung open, and Admiral Klix entered. Behind him walked 2 humans, and, most surprisingly, an Arcturian. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Emperor Zorn, rising from his throne. "You dare to bring aliens into my court? You dare to return in failure?" Admiral Klix bowed respectfully. "Not failure, Your Majesty. Discovery. I bring representatives from Earth and the Galactic Concord." "The Concord is a myth," spat the Emperor, "and Earth should be a conquered world." Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "Emperor Zorn, I am Dr. Linda Hayes of Earth. We come in peace and friendship." "I do not want your peace or friendship," said the Emperor. "I want your world's resources. Resources can be traded, not just taken," said Dr. Hayes calmly. "We offer something far more valuable than the minerals of our world." Ambassador Zell stepped forward. The Arcturian's presence caused whispers among the court officials. Many had thought the species extinct. "Greetings, Emperor Zorn," said Zell. "It has been 5,000 years since an Arcturian stood in this palace." Emperor Zorn's eyes widened. "How do you know our history?" "We know many things," replied Zell, "including the coming fate of your empire if you continue on your current path." Admiral Klix gestured to the Earth representatives. "Your Majesty, these humans defeated our fleet without firing a single shot. Their technology is beyond anything we possess. Yet instead of destroying us, they helped us, improved our ships, healed our wounded." Emperor Zorn looked suspicious. "Why would they do this?" "Because that is the way of the conquered," explained Zell. "Not conquest, but cooperation. Not war, but peace." Dr. Hayes stepped forward again. "Emperor Zorn, Earth offers an alliance. We will share technology, medicine, energy systems that will improve the lives of your people. In exchange, we ask that the Voidarian Empire join the Galactic Concord and end its wars of conquest." The Emperor laughed. "The Empire has expanded through conquest for 1,000 years. Why would we stop now?" "Because there is a better way," said Admiral Klix. He nodded to one of his officers, who activated a holographic display. The display showed Voidarian worlds transformed. Clean cities, abundant food, healthy citizens, ships exploring strange new worlds not for conquest, but for discovery. "This could be our future, Your Majesty," said Admiral Klix. "Not endless war, but endless growth. Not fear, but friendship." Emperor Zorn stared at the images. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. The Empire had always expanded through conquest, but each new world required more resources to control, more soldiers to maintain order. The cycle never ended. "And if I refuse this offer?" he asked. Ambassador Zell spoke softly. "Then the Voidarian Empire will continue its current path until it eventually collapses under its own weight. It is the fate of all empires built on conquest." The Emperor looked at his court officials. He saw something in their eyes he had never noticed before: weariness. They were tired of endless war. "I need time to consider this," he said finally. "Of course, Your Majesty," said Dr. Hayes. As the Earth representatives were escorted to guest quarters, Admiral Klix remained behind with the Emperor. "Tell me the truth, Admiral," said Emperor Zorn when they were alone. "Could we defeat these humans?" Admiral Klix shook his head. "Not with our current technology, Your Majesty. They could have destroyed our fleet in seconds. Instead, they chose to help us. That is strength beyond anything we possess." The Emperor nodded slowly. "I have ruled through fear for too long. Perhaps it is time to try another way." 6 months later, the first Voidarian delegation arrived on Earth. For the first time, ordinary citizens of the Empire set foot on the blue planet. They walked through cities where humans lived in peace. They saw farms where food grew in abundance. They visited hospitals where diseases that plagued their worlds were cured with simple treatments. In the Global Defense Command Center beneath the Swiss Alps, President Johnson watched the news reports of the Voidarians' visit. Beside her stood General Garcia and Dr. Hayes. "The transition is going well," said Dr. Hayes. "Emperor Zorn has already stopped 3 planned invasions." "The road ahead will be long," warned General Garcia. "A culture of conquest does not change overnight." "But it can change," said President Johnson, "just as we changed from our own wars to unity." On the screen, Emperor Zorn and Admiral Click stood before the United Nations, signing the first treaty between Earth and the Voidarian Empire, the first step toward the Empire's entry into the Galactic Concord. High above Earth, Lieutenant Susan Miller stood on the observation deck of the lunar base. Through the window, she could see the home planet shining blue and green in the blackness of space. Beside her stood Bob Wilson, the engineer who had helped repair the Voidarian fleet. "Trudeau, you think they'll keep their word?" asked Susan. Bob shrugged. "Who knows? But we gave them a chance. Sometimes that's all anyone needs." In the vastness of space beyond, other empires and species watched with interest. Earth had revealed itself at last. The sleeping giant was awake, not as a conqueror, but as a peacemaker. And throughout the galaxy, worlds that had feared the coming of the Voidarian fleet now looked toward Earth with something new: hope.